I spent 7 years behind bars. I earned a bit of a sentence reduction for good behavior, and the day I walked out, they handed me back my cell phone. Almost immediately, it started ringing. It was a string of calls from old bosses I used to work with. They were desperate to get me back on their teams. Some offered me $10,000 a month. One even offered $20,000 plus a company car. Most of these calls came from two places, Panjiayuan in Beijing and Xinyang Road in Tianjin. I thought about it for a minute, then turned them all down. Getting into this industry was a mistake from the very beginning. Sure, you can get rich overnight, but I paid a heavy price. 7 years of my life. I went in as a fair-skinned young kid and came out a 30-something man with a rough, weathered face. The girls I used to know probably have kids in grade school by now. I had no family left and nowhere to go. In the end, I chose Dolly. I bought a tiny storefront by Irai Lake and opened a small supermarket. On slow days, I just walk along the shore and feel the sea breeze. It's a quiet life. My shop is on Tsongshan East Road, right next to the Lambert. If any friends ever want to visit, I'll welcome you with tea instead of wine. You've probably heard about the recent discoveries of the ancient Shu civilization, those gold masks that shocked the whole country. To be honest, my path to wealth was connected to things like that. It boils down to two words: antiques and grave robbing. A few years ago, shows like Ghost Blows Out the Light and Grave Robbers Chronicles were huge hits. Now that I have the time, I've decided to write down what actually happened back then. I never saw the Cloud Top Palace or the Qinling Sacred Tree, but I entered the antique trade at 16, and I saw things most people would never believe. Let's start at the beginning. I was born in a tiny village called Jinai Mo in northeast China. The winters there are cold enough to kill. My grandmother raised me. I never met my parents, and I never cared to ask their names. There's an old saying that grandparents love you more than parents do, and she did, but I was a wild kid. I hated school, ignored my teachers, and my grades were a total disaster. We survived on government subsidies, about 80 yuan a month for poverty relief and another 100 for being an orphan in hardship. We barely scraped by. Back then, I was obsessed with the treasure hunting shows on CCTV. People would bring in old jars and plates they didn't care about, and the experts would say they were worth tens of thousands. They were antiques. They could buy you a house or a car. I started lying to my grandmother, telling her the school required new study materials. When she gave me the money, I ran to the bookstore and bought every book I could find on antiques. The first one I remember was a thick volume on ancient coins. It opened a whole new world for me. I started obsessively searching our house for anything old. I even tricked my classmates. I told them I'd buy any old copper coins they could find for 50 cents apiece, regardless of what was written on them. I encouraged them to borrow them from their parents. To fund this, I stopped buying side dishes at the school cafeteria. Later, I even sold my textbooks for 7 yuan. My teacher just sighed and said I was a lost cause, a future tumor on society. I didn't care. I was dreaming of getting rich. Even if I was a tumor, I was going to be a wealthy one. When I was 18, disaster struck. My grandmother was clearing snow in the yard when she slipped and broke her leg. The medical bills and surgery were going to cost over 3,000 yuan. We didn't even have 600 to our name. I remember her lying on the heated brick bed, buried under heavy quilts, crying in the middle of the night. My aunt ran several successful farmstay restaurants in the Mo area, so I went to her to beg for a loan. They gave me the money, but they weren't kind about it. I overheard my uncle calling me a jinx and saying our branch of the family was a lost cause. He told my aunt the money was as good as gone and that she should stop seeing us. I sat outside on a rock for 3 hours that night. Even with thick clothes, the 30 below zero Mo wind bit through everything. My pride was shattered. Clutching that borrowed money, I made a vow. My name is Xiang Yunfeng, and I was going to make something of myself. I dropped out of school right then. Technically, I don't even have a middle school diploma. After paying for my grandmother's surgery and medicine, I had 753 yuan left. I kept it secret. I used that money to start buying more than just coins. I traveled to neighboring villages, looking for porcelain and silver dollars. Villagers knew silver was valuable, but they didn't understand old bottles, bowls, or plates. Thanks to my books and those TV shows, I had developed a basic eye for the craft. I spent 100 yuan on a pair of late Qing dynasty vases. I spent another 200 on some Republic-era jars decorated with ladies in Famille Rose style. Then, I spent 180 on 3 blue and white bowls from the mid-Qing era. Unfortunately, those bowls had small cracks, so they weren't in great shape. I also had a small bag of about 200 copper coins I'd saved up. Most were common Song and Qing dynasty coins, the kind that aren't worth much, but I had 3 Yongzheng Tongbao coins in great condition. I knew those were worth something, even if I didn't know exactly how much. By the time I was done, I had spent over 500 yuan. I had 240 left. At the time, the average monthly salary was only about 300. A female classmate helped me out by lending me 2 massive 30-inch suitcases. I packed 11 pieces of porcelain in my bag of coins, wrapping everything carefully in quilts and stuffing the gaps with foam. I had 2 heavy suitcases and a bursting backpack. My grandmother didn't understand. She said I was wasting my life and that she'd raised me for nothing. My aunt heard about it too. The whole village whispered and pointed behind my back. But on the 17th day of the 12th lunar month, I ignored the insults and left Mo. In my head, Beijing was where the money was. If I had antiques, I had to sell them to Beijingers. Besides, I had always dreamed of seeing the legendary Panjiayuan market. There was no direct train from Mo to Beijing. I had to take a train to Siping first, then change for Beijing West. The journey was over 2,000 kilometers and took 50 hours. To save money, I bought the cheapest hard-seat ticket. I looked like a mess, greasy hair, cheap clothes, hauling 2 giant suitcases. People in the station stared and whispered. I had never been far from home, and now I was alone. After buying my ticket, I had less than 100 yuan left. If I couldn't sell my goods, I wouldn't even have enough money to get home, let alone eat. Train food was too expensive. I survived on hot water from the station dispensers, and, when the hunger got unbearable, a single 2.5 yuan bag of fried dough twists. When I finally reached Beijing, everything felt new. I'd never even seen a security scanner before. I was young, but I wasn't shy. I started asking people how to get to the Panjiayuan antique market. A kind girl at a ticket window told me to take the subway and explained exactly where to transfer. My new life was about to begin. I took Line 9 from Beijing West Station, transferred at Lilikio to Line 10, and finally got off at Panjiayuan. My memories served me well. I didn't get lost once. Back then, the subway was only 2 yuan, and you could ride as long as you wanted without leaving the station. When I stepped out, the sidewalks were covered in anti-slip pits. I was struggling, hauling my heavy backpack and dragging 2 massive suitcases behind me. After crossing the Huawei Bridge, I finally saw it. The golden inscription on the stone monument, Panjiayuan Flea Market. I had finally arrived. I dragged my luggage through the north gate and entered the main shed area. It was a Saturday, and the place was a sea of people. My eyes widened at the sheer variety. There was everything: Bodhi seeds, amber, turquoise, porcelain, jade, bronze weapons, stone carvings, and ancient paintings. It was overwhelming. I realized quickly that most of it was fake. Real antiques were rare on these stalls. I felt a surge of confidence. My goods were authentic pieces I'd collected myself. I figured they'd sell out in no time. I spotted an empty spot in the shed and started to unpack. Suddenly, a bald stall owner next to me stepped in my way. He asked what I was doing. I told him I was setting up my stall. He sneered, asking if this was my spot. He told me to get lost. I gritted my teeth and asked how much he wanted for the space. His eyes darted around before he flashed a fake smile and demanded 100 yuan. I was shocked. It was way too expensive, but he told me to pay up or leave. I only had about 100 yuan left in my pocket. After some desperate haggling, I handed him 90. I was down to my last 3 yuan. The bald man took the money and kept grinning. I barely had half my items laid out when the loudspeakers crackled to life. A voice announced that Panjiayuan was closing for the day and asked everyone to leave. I froze. I hadn't even started. I turned to the bald man, furious, and demanded my money back. He spat on the ground and cursed at me. He claimed that since I'd laid out my cloth, the deal was done. No refunds. My eyes turned red with rage. I grabbed his arm and screamed for my money. He didn't hesitate. He kicked me hard in the stomach. I was young and no match for a grown man like him. I doubled over in pain, unable to breathe. People around me packed their tricycles and left. The bald man disappeared into the crowd. It was the middle of winter, and the night air was biting. The market security guards, leading large dogs, kept rushing me to pack up, threatening me with fines if I stayed. By the time I dragged my suitcases out of the gates, the sky was pitch black. I was cold, hungry, and had only 3 yuan left. I sat on a roadside bench for half an hour until I heard about an internet cafe 2 kilometers away. I dragged my luggage there, hoping for a place to stay, but the cheapest overnight rate was 10 yuan. My plan fell apart. The cold was becoming unbearable, so I slipped into a 24-hour ATM vestibule for shelter. People came in to withdraw cash and looked at me like I was a freak. The floor was freezing. I couldn't sleep, so I pulled my hood low and curled into a corner. A few hours later, someone tapped my shoulder. I looked up to see a woman in her 50s holding a small white dog. She looked concerned. She asked why I was sleeping there in the cold and told me she'd bought 2 sesame flatbreads that were still warm. She placed the plastic bag on a fire extinguisher box and walked away. My stomach growled. I took the bag. The bread was crispy and fragrant, but as I ate, I started to cry. I thought about giving up, but I knew my family would be mocked even more if I went home a failure. I told myself I would become rich. I had to. At 8 the next morning, I went back to Panjiayuan. I didn't have money for a stall fee, so I just wandered around with my suitcases. Whenever I saw someone looking at porcelain, I'd lean in and ask if they wanted to see my authentic pieces. But the market speakers started warning visitors about illegal vendors and scammers. People looked at me with suspicion and hurried away. In desperation, I walked into an actual antique shop. The owner was indifferent, but told me to show him what I had. I felt a spark of hope as I opened my suitcase. He glanced at my items and shook his head, saying they weren't great, though he admitted they were old. He pointed to a pair of blue and white porcelain vases and asked for a price. I swallowed hard and asked for 800 yuan. He scoffed. He offered me 150. My heart sank. I had spent 100 yuan just to buy them in the mountains, not to mention the hunger and the 2,000-kilometer train ride. He was offering me a measly 50 yuan profit. I was red-faced with anger as I packed my things to leave. He tried to stop me, offering to add another 20 yuan. I told him to keep his 20 yuan for himself. I was young and hot-headed. I couldn't stand the insult. I stormed out of the shop. I tried to set up on the sidewalk outside the market, but I saw city officials confiscating goods from other illegal vendors. I panicked and backed off. Just when I felt like I'd hit a dead end, an old man approached me. He told me that Panjiayuan was too expensive on weekends and suggested I try Manhwa Temple. He said the stalls there were free. I was overjoyed. I dragged my suitcases across the city to Manhwa Temple. This was my last chance. The temple was packed with vendors selling coins and porcelain shards. It was the perfect crowd for what I had. My confidence returned. I found an empty patch of ground and used my last 3 yuan to buy 2 chicken sausages. As I ate, I told myself I wouldn't let Beijing break me. I wasn't going to starve, and I wasn't going to freeze. Whether I'd be eating steak or dirt depended entirely on today. I didn't expect things to move so fast. I hadn't even had my stall set up for 10 minutes before a massive crowd swarmed me. "Boss, how much for these coins?" someone shouted. "Hey, let me see that pink porcelain salt jar," another voice chimed in. I was overwhelmed. I couldn't move fast enough. Suddenly, a man pushed to the front, pointing at a pair of Yonglong gallbladder vases. "How much for the pair? Give me your lowest price. If it's fair, I'm taking them." I looked at the chaos of my stall and blurted out the first number that came to mind. 800. Minimum. "Done," he said, nodding instantly. "Wrap them up. How do you want the money?" "Hold on. Not so fast," another man shouted, stepping forward. "I'll give you 830. The first guy, Boss Song, turned cold. "Malao Lu, that's not how the rules work." I claimed them first. Malao Lu scoffed. "Rules? You haven't paid yet. The young boss can sell to whoever he wants. Besides, Boss Song, you know as well as I do that old pieces are getting rare. These dowry vases are easy to move. You put these in a nice box in your shop, and you'll flip them for a fortune. Don't act like you don't know their value." Boss Song slapped his thigh in frustration. "Damn it, Malao Lu. What I sell them for is none of your business." They looked like they were about to throw punches. I stepped in quickly to play peacemaker. Please, don't fight. I have other things. Look at this salt jar. The lid is missing, but the paintwork is incredible. Boss Song ignored the jar and glared at me. Kid, you said 800 to me first. Who are you selling to? I was stunned. These were the same items nobody wanted at Panjiayuan, and now they were fighting over them? I took a breath. I had to be a man of my word. Sir, I said 800, so they're yours. I won't go back on my promise. Boss Song burst out laughing and patted his beer belly, shooting a smug look at Ma Lao Lu. He did a quick sweep of the rest of my items. You're a straight shooter, kid. I like that. Tell you what, I'll make this easy for both of us. I'll take everything. The whole lot. My jaw dropped. I couldn't process it. Was this Beijing boss really this generous? All right, stop selling. A woman at the neighboring stall said, looking at me with pure envy. Pack it up and follow Boss Song to his shop to get your cash. I scrambled to pack my things and followed him. When we got to his shop, he even offered to buy my suitcases so I wouldn't have to carry them. By the time we finished counting, I was holding 4,700 yuan in cash. In those days, that was a full year's salary for a normal worker. I had sold everything, even the luggage. I walked out of Baohua Temple with empty hands, but a heavy pocket. I felt the thick stack of 100 yuan bills against my chest and couldn't stop grinning. I stood on the Guangyuan Bridge, overlooking the city, and screamed at the top of my lungs. Hard work pays off. I might have been a failure at school, but I'm a natural-born businessman. My uncle's restaurant is nothing. I'm going to be the biggest antique dealer in the country. People walked by, giving me weird looks like I was a lunatic. It's been 16 years since that day, and every time I think about it, I laugh at what a naive idiot I was. But back then, I felt like a king. I was starving, so I went to a noodle shop and ordered 2 huge bowls of sliced noodles and a side dish. I sat there, picking my teeth with a toothpick, already calculating my future. I'd pay my uncle back and still have a massive bankroll. If I could make 4,000 in one trip, 10 trips would be 40,000. I'd be rich. That night, I headed to the West Railway Station. A middle-aged woman intercepted me and talked me into staying at her small guest house for 60 yuan. Once I was in my room, she leaned in and whispered, "Hey kid, you want me to find a girl to keep you company?" I panicked, waving my hands frantically. No girls. I don't want anyone. She kept pushing and prodding until I finally gave her an extra 20 yuan just to leave me alone. I should have remembered the old saying, never show your wealth. I saw the way her eyes locked onto my stack of red bills when I paid her. I was exhausted. I put the money in a plastic bag and tucked it deep under my pillow before drifting off into a heavy sleep. When I woke up, the world ended. The bag was there, but it was light. Empty. My money, where's my money? I felt the blood drain from my face. I tore the bed apart, flipped the pillows, and checked every corner of the room. Nothing. For 1,700 yuan, everything I had worked for was gone. I ran to the landlady, screaming about the police and security cameras. She didn't care. The money was gone, and it wasn't coming back. To this day, I can't stand those small hotels near train stations. If I hadn't lost that money, I might have just become a small-time antique shop owner with a quiet life and a family. My entire life path changed that morning. But if I hadn't lost it, I never would have become the man I am today. The world would never have known the name Xiang Yinfeng. The police took a report, but they basically told me I'd never see a cent of it. I walked to a pedestrian bridge outside the station, feeling completely hollow. I couldn't go home. I couldn't face the laughter of the villagers or the look of disappointment from my uncle. I felt like a total loser. For a split second, I looked down at the traffic below and thought about jumping. I was an orphan. Nobody loved me. Maybe I should just end it and hope for a better life the next time around. I actually put one leg over the railing. Right then, someone tapped me on the shoulder. Haha, young man. You're so young. What could be so bad that you'd want to do this? I wiped my tears and turned around. I froze. It was the old man from Panjiayuan, the one who told me to go to Baohua Temple. I've been watching you since yesterday, he said, his eyes bright and sharp. Let me guess. You got robbed. I nodded, my eyes red. All of it. I don't want to live anymore. He shook his head and chuckled. How much did you lose? Over 4,000 yuan, I sobbed. He held up a single finger. 4,000. You call that money? You come with me, and in the time it takes to do this, I'll show you how to make 20,000. I stared at his finger. How long? A year? He shook his head. A month? He shook his head again. A week? I'm done teasing you, he laughed. 1 minute. If you're fast with your hands, making thousands of yuan takes 60 seconds. I thought he was a human trafficker trying to sell my kidneys. I'd heard stories about that. How you'd never be able to have kids and your wife would leave you. He didn't argue. He just turned to walk away. Kid, if you want to make a name for yourself and drive a Mercedes back to your village, follow me. If you want to die over a few pieces of paper, then stay here. It just means I was wrong about you. He was right. It was only 4,000 yuan. I pulled my leg back over the railing and followed him. For my family, 4,000 yuan was an astronomical sum. To the man standing in front of me, it was pocket change. This man would eventually become my master, the one who brought me into the trade. His path to riches was simple, robbing graves. There's an old saying in our line of work. To find the dragon, look to the mountains. Each peak is a gate to be passed. If the gate is locked 1,000 times over, a king or a lord surely rests within. From the moment I followed him down that overpass, I was officially in the business. It didn't take long for me to realize the old man wasn't lying. A few thousand yuan really was nothing. In this world, you could make that in 60 seconds. You've probably heard of the 4 great tomb-robbing factions from movies or books: the Majin Colonels, the Panshan Taoists, the Xiaoling Warriors, and the FHO Generals. In reality, those groups vanished into history a long time ago. Today, the trade is split into 2 main factions, the North and the South. Some people joke and call them the brave faction and the coward faction. The Northerners are the brave ones. They carry luoyang shovels and aren't afraid to dig up anything. But they have a weakness: they can't handle water. Especially in southern regions like Hunan, Guizhou, or Zhejiang, where the tombs are often submerged. There's a saying, dry for 1,000 years, wet for 10,000, but half wet and half dry for only 6 months. Water tombs are incredibly difficult. You need the swimming skills of a water monkey and professional diving gear. Most Northerners are land ducks, legends on the surface, but useless underwater. The Southerners are often family operations. Fathers teach sons, grandfathers teach grandsons. They rarely work with outsiders they don't know. People call them the coward faction because they're terrified of being betrayed by their own kind. The industry is a mess, filled with all sorts of characters. The real pros are impressive. They can recite ancient scriptures from memory and pinpoint a burial site with a single glance. Then there are the amateurs who think carrying a hoe to a mound makes them a grave robber. Those are the ones who die first or get caught the fastest. The regular army, the professionals, rarely get caught. A standard 6-person crew has a specific hierarchy. The one who makes the most money is the head lookout. They find the tombs. It's a highly technical job, and a talented head lookout is always in high demand. Then there's the rice seller. Rice is our code for money. This person handles the fencing of the goods. They need massive networks and connections to ensure the items are sold without being traced back to the crew. Next are the earthworkers. These guys dig the holes. They rely on experience. They can push a luoyang shovel into the ground, pull up a sample of soil, and tell you exactly which dynasty the tomb belongs to just by the layering. Below them is the whistler, or the lookout. Their job is exactly what it sounds like, watching for trouble. You can't underestimate them. A successful job depends on a good lookout. Some will even move into a village a year before a job, pretending to be businessmen to gain the locals' trust. Then there's logistics. Usually one person who never goes into the pit. They handle all the equipment: specialized suits, diamond shovels, gas masks, waterproof flashlights, walkie-talkies, and even the daily necessities like pots, pans, and toothpaste. Having one person buy everything reduces our footprint and keeps us from being exposed. Finally, there's the soil scatterer. That's what I was when I started. We get paid the least, but even the smallest share was way more than any factory job. To be a scatterer, you need to look ordinary. I was chosen because I have a commoner's face. I'm plain. Nobody looks at me twice. If you're too handsome or too ugly, you can't do the job. You'd get noticed before you even finished emptying your pockets. I'd walk around like I was just out for a stroll, letting the tomb soil slide down my pant legs bit by bit until it was gone. No traces, no evidence. We'd split the money later, and nobody would be the wiser. The old man who recruited me was named Wang Xianxing. In the trade, everyone called him Master Wang. Rumor had it he'd touched over 1,000 tombs, ranging from the Warring States and the Qin dynasty all the way to the Qing. In our world, the most coveted tombs are from the Han and Western Zhou dynasties. The reason is simple: bronzeware and ancient jade are worth a fortune. People say 9 out of 10 Han tombs are empty because they've already been robbed, and they aren't lying. But a Western Zhou tomb? That's the jackpot. Back then, lords were everywhere, and they loved being buried with their wealth. If you're lucky enough to find a Western Zhou pit full of bronzes, your grandkids won't ever have to work a day in their lives. However, Western Zhou tombs are the deepest. After Qin Shi Huang unified China, burial mounds became popular. But before that, there were no mounds. Over thousands of years, the landscape shifted. Most Western Zhou tombs are now 15 meters underground. They are hard to find and even harder to dig. Officially, the government bans the sale of bronze artifacts. But everyone knows the truth. Where do you think those bronzes on TV appraisal shows come from? Less than 1% are passed down through families. The rest come from us. Master Wang took me out of Beijing and told me not to contact the outside world for a while. Our first job was in Shund. It was a Western Zhou tomb. They were short-handed, which is why Master Wang picked me to be the scatterer. I was the youngest member of the crew. When we arrived in Shund, Master Wang tossed me 1,000 yuan. He said it was a red envelope for joining the trade. He told me to spend it however I wanted. Even suggested I go find some girls. I was too young and terrified for that. I spent the money on food instead. I tried water snake soup, 4-cup chicken, and steamed pork. It was all delicious. After 2 days of wandering Shund, Master Wang called me over. Yin Feng, he said. We move tonight. Are you ready? Do you remember what I taught you? I nodded. Never scatter soil in daylight. Never scatter near cars. Never scatter in parks. Never scatter in crowds. Master Wang nodded, satisfied. And where do you plan to go? I thought for a second. Construction sites, demolition zones, deep woods, and private gardens. Good, he smiled. I didn't even teach you those yet. You've got instinct. Stay sharp and follow us closely. Within 2 years, I'll make you the richest man in your village. I nodded eagerly. That night, 4 more people arrived at our inn, 3 men and 1 woman. The woman handled logistics. She was in her 30s, had a flirtatious smile, and a mole under her eye. Her nickname was the Mole. I later heard her goal was to sleep with 100 men before she turned 40. Ooh, a newcomer? She purred, looking me up and down. He's so young. I wonder if everything else about him is small too. Knock it off, Hong, Master Wang cut in. The kid is sharp. Give him 2 years, and he'll be a pro. The 3 men were brothers, all surnamed Sun. There was Sun the eldest, Sun the second, and Sun the third. Master Wang told me the younger 2 were famous in the underworld. They could do magic with a Luoyang shovel and had a special talent for detecting soil in deep pits. Sun the eldest handled both lookouts and sails. At first glance, he looked steady and honest. I would only find out later just how wrong that first impression was. People who look honest on the outside are often the most cunning. They keep their eyes on 6 paths and their ears open to all directions. If things go south, they're the ones who can actually hold it together. There was a small mountain gully southwest of Shun Mountain Park. The locals called it Moth Mountain. Master Wang told me the big pit, the tomb, was located halfway up that slope. Master, I asked him, how do you know there's a massive pit halfway up the mountain? Master Wang blew a smoke ring and squinted at me. Lin Yuan, when the mountains lock and the rivers cross, the center is clear on both sides. Study the high peaks and the flat plains. The big pit is buried right in the middle. I stood there, completely lost. It sounded like a tongue twister. I didn't understand a word of it. Later, after I memorized the burial scriptures and he passed down his years of experience in seeking the dragon and spotting the point, I finally realized what he meant. Those 4 short lines perfectly summed up the feng shui of Moth Mountain. At 1 in the morning, we hiked up the mountainside with heavy packs. Master Wang stopped at an old mountain tree and stomped his foot. He looked excited. Eldest, second, third, this is it. Take a sample. Taste the saltiness. If there are stones, use the needle. Son the second nodded. He tapped the small walkie-talkie on his shoulder. Eldest, we're ready to eat. Any customers around? The red light on the radio flickered. Son the eldest's deep voice crackled through. The wind is calm and the waves are still. Start the fire and cook. Knowing no one was around, Son the second's eyes flashed with excitement. He dropped his pack and pulled out a series of short rods and a curved, semicircular shovel head. Lin Yuan, Master Wong whispered to me, this is our rice bowl. Times are changing, and we have to keep up. These Luoyang shovels are made of threaded sections now. You put them in a bag, and no one can tell what they are. Click, click, click. Son the second skillfully assembled the tool. Once finished, the shovel was over 8 meters long. Second brother, this is a deep pit, Son the third asked. Is that long enough? Don't worry. If it's not, I have more in my bag. If it gets too long, it's hard to handle. We're just checking the soil structure first to taste the salt. Lin Yuan, come here. Hold this steady for me. I ran over and helped him balance the long shovel. Then, right in front of me, Son the second unzipped his pants and started relieving himself right on the spot. He finished, gave a shiver, and zipped up. He stared at the wet ground for a moment and frowned. No, there are rocks down there. We need to move the spot. Little Lin, you stand right here. Give me a soak. I didn't get it, but I did what I was told. I let it fly. Ha, Son the second laughed. Young guys really have the fire in them. Look at how yellow that is. He watched the ground where I'd gone for 2 minutes, then nodded. This is the spot. Fewer rocks. Let's work. His strength was incredible. Every thrust of the shovel went 10 centimeters deep. The Luoyang shovel kept bringing up soil. When the shovel was halfway down, I noticed the color of the dirt changing. It was turning black. Second brother, look. It's turning black. Are we there? Not even close, he grunted. This black soil isn't what we want. This is just decomposed tree roots. It's useless. The hole got deeper and deeper. I was amazed. Damn, it's deep. Third, I'm out of rod. Add more. With the extension added, the shovel went deeper. An hour later, the shovel brought up a layer of white clay, followed by some blue-green clay. Son the second took a sniff of the soil and suddenly turned ecstatic. Holy shit. Master Wong, this kid Lin Yuan is a lucky star. I haven't seen a pit like this in 2 years. We hit the rammed earth layer on the first try. White paste clay joined with green paste clay. This is either a Western Zhou noble or a minor vassal king. We're going to be rich. Second brother, keep your voice down, Son the third hissed. Son the second waved him off, grinning. I haven't seen green carrying white in years. I hope it's a fresh country. A fresh country meant a tomb that had never been robbed. If it was untouched, we'd make a fortune. Master Wong spoke up quietly. That's all up to luck. Even if it's been touched, as long as there are 2 scraps of meat left, this trip isn't a waste. This is a Western Zhou pit. What if there's a 4-goat square zune or a bronze vessel inside? Haha, Master Wong, you've got quite the imagination. If we actually found something like that, we wouldn't even dare sell it. We'd be hunted down. Son the second tapped his radio again. Eldest, Master Wong says there might be a 4-goat square zune in here. You got a way to move it. The red light flickered. Square zoom my ass. I don't want to face a firing squad. Just get to work. The Sun brothers were famous because they were the real deal. Based on that one shovel of soil, they could already visualize the tomb below. Because it was so old, these tombs usually had some collapse. Thinking you could dig a straight line into the main chamber was a fantasy. You'd likely drift off course and miss the burial goods entirely. The safest bet was to dig down to the top of the tomb path, then decide whether to hit the side chambers or the main room. The 2 brothers started digging in earnest with a whirlwind shovel. Now, it was my turn to work. My job was to scatter the soil. But I couldn't just throw any dirt around. The hole was 10 meters deep. I couldn't carry it all. Dirt that matched the surrounding soil could be scattered locally. But I was responsible for the soil from the rammed layers, the white and green clays. Their colors were too distinct. If I left them there, it would be a dead giveaway. Since people farmed these mountains, I had to hide this colored dirt. I piled it to the side, waiting for the right moment to dispose of it. Lin Yuan, find a good place to stack that. Don't be an idiot, and put it in someone's field. Don't worry, second brother. I know. There wasn't too much of the colored clay. I pulled 7 or 8 small bags from my pack, filled them, and hid them in a pile. Suddenly, Sun the Second stopped digging. Second, what is it? Master Wong asked from above. Master, look. He grabbed a handful of soil. The further down we go, the wetter it gets. This isn't a good sign. There might be standing water in the pit. Master Wong frowned. A water pit? We can't be that unlucky. Try another 20 centimeters. Sun the Second nodded and dug deeper. Second brother, stop. Sun the Third shouted. This is the tomb path. There's definitely water. If we break through, the hole will be soaked. It won't hold. Master Wong cursed under his breath. Damn it. I didn't account for this. Second, third, get up here. We're dealing with a water hole, and we don't have enough time. The brothers threw up the shovel and climbed out of the hole using their legs against the walls. Master, Sun the Second said, lighting a cigarette. I bet if we go down another 1.5 meters, we'll hit the stone roof. We've come this far. Do you want to gamble? What are you thinking? He flicked his ash and spoke coldly. Call the mole. Tell her to bring the submersible pump and the small generator. Master Wong immediately shook his head. Pumping water? That's too risky. It's not raining, and with the temperature in Shund, the pit won't be frozen. If we can't drain it in 2 hours, we're finished once the sun comes up. All that work for nothing. Second brother, Sun the Third added, I agree with the master. For now. It was a fact now. The tomb path was flooded. If there was too much water, a single pump wouldn't be enough to clear it out. Sun the Third frowned, voicing his concerns to the group. Then what the hell do we do? Master Wong muttered, rubbing his chin. We're staring at a piece of fat meat we can't even bite into. He turned to me suddenly. Yin Feng, what do you think? Should we pack it up and head down the mountain? Or keep going? The Sun brothers turned their heads to look at me too. I was startled, still crouching on the ground, sorting the colored soil. I hadn't expected him to ask for my opinion. I thought about it for a second and gave him a straight answer. Master, I want to make money. Sun the Second burst out laughing. Brilliant. The bold feast while the timid starve. Master, even the kid isn't scared. What are we waiting for? The red light on the walkie-talkie flickered. Master Wong made the call immediately. Contact the mole. Tell her to get the equipment here within an hour. For every minute she's late, I'm docking a point from her cut. This was my first time seeing the efficiency of a professional logistics operation. In less than an hour, a submersible pump and a small generator were delivered right to our spot. As soon as the pump arrived, Sun the Second rolled up his pants and slid back down the hole with a shovel. Mud kept flying out of the pit, getting wetter and wetter with every scoop. 20 minutes later, his voice echoed from the depths. Holy shit, it's a gusher. He scrambled out just as the water surged, filling half the tunnel. We hooked up the generator, and Master Wong dropped the pump into the dark hole. We listened to the gurgling sound of water being forced out through the pipes. Luckily for us, the flow slowed down after a short while, and the walls of the tunnel held firm without collapsing. Master Wong pulled the pump up. Second, get back down there. Use the needle. Break through the roof. The needle was a specialized tool for tomb robbing, a heavy-duty breaker tipped with industrial diamonds, designed specifically to pierce stone ceilings. Soon, the rhythmic clinking of stone being chipped away drifted up from the hole. Master, we're through, Sun the Second shouted. A smile finally touched Master Wong's face. He checked his watch. The pumping cost us too much time. Yin Feng, you go down too. An extra pair of hands will speed things up. Grab whatever you can. I froze. Master, don't we need to let it vent? What if there's no oxygen down there? Master Wong laughed and shook his head. You've got a lot to learn. If the tomb was perfectly sealed, how did all that water get in? Don't worry, the air circulation is fine. I put on my headlamp and, for the first time in my life, lowered myself into a tomb. I braced my legs against the walls of the narrow shaft, inching down toward the hole Sun the Second had smashed in the ceiling. The drop from the ceiling to the tomb floor was about 3 meters. Looking down, I got cold feet. The tomb floor was still flooded with calf-deep water. The Sun brothers were already standing in it, their headlamps cutting through the gloom. Jump, Yin Feng. It's not that high, Sun the Second called out, looking up at me. We'll help you back up later. I whispered a quick prayer to whatever gods were listening and jumped. I didn't stick the landing. I hit the water face first, sliding into a clumsy heap. You need to work out more, kid, Sun the second joked, hauling me up. Look at those skinny arms and legs. You okay? The tomb was shaped like a cross. We were standing in the center. To our left and right were the side chambers. Straight ahead lay the main burial chamber. We're in luck, Sun the second whispered, his voice echoing. The path didn't collapse. Judging by the layout, this is a mid to early Western Zhou noble. A tomb this grade will definitely have a sealed stone door at the main chamber. If it had collapsed, we'd be in trouble, but third can handle any door as long as it isn't rigged from the inside. Right, third? You flatter me, second brother, Sun the third said, his eyes fixed on the darkness ahead. Let's hit the main chamber first, then the side rooms. We waded through the murky water, the splashing of our boots the only sound. Suddenly, something bright red floated toward us on the surface. What's this? Sun the third fished it out and spread it flat. It was a pink hand towel. It was modern, with a brand logo clearly printed on the corner. It had floated out from the direction of the main chamber. The brothers' faces went pale instantly. Sun the third tilted his head, his light illuminating the ceiling. In the northwest corner, there was a small, clean hole drilled through the stone. The rock around it was covered in a spiderweb of cracks. Damn it, Sun the second hissed, throwing the towel back into the water. That was made with an impact drill. They used explosives. Those bastards didn't have a diamond needle, so they tried to blow the roof open. This towel was used to plug the hole and muffle the blast. Someone's already been here. It's definitely that crew from the south. He was shaking with rage, the veins on his forehead bulging. We did all this work just to pick up their leftovers. Sun the third sighed and keyed his radio. Master, we have a situation. The pit's been hit already. The radio went silent for a full minute. Then, Master Wang's cold voice came through. When? Are you in the main chamber? Not yet. We're in the path. We found a modern towel in the water. It was recent. You know how those southerners work. They don't leave much behind. After a pause, Master Wang replied. Second, go into the main chamber and check. If it's empty, don't bother with the side rooms. Pack up and come back up. Sun the second lowered the radio. I don't smoke, so my sense of smell is sharper than theirs. Just then, I caught a whiff of something, a faint, sweet fragrance. Second brother, why does it smell like incense? I asked. Sun the second froze. He took a deep, exaggerated sniff of the air, then looked at his brother. His expression turned deadly serious. You're right, he whispered. That's Nan incense. What's wrong with that? I asked, confused. Rich people used Phoebe Jinan wood for their coffins, right? Wouldn't a wooden coffin smell like that naturally? The relaxed vibe was completely gone. The brothers looked tense, almost fearful. Yin Feng, give me your hand, Sun the second commanded. Why? I reached out, and before I could react, he pulled a sharp blade across my finger. Ow! What the hell? I yelped, pulling back as bright red blood welled up. Without a word, both brothers took my blood and smeared it onto their wrists. Why are you using my blood? I complained, nursing my finger. Sun the second looked at me with a chilling, sideways grin. In our trade, there are 4 great evils and 6 lesser evils you never want to run into. A cross-eyed guardian beast, the scent of Nan incense in the air, a black coffin that never rots, and an everlasting lamp that never runs dry. Those are the 4 great evils. The ancestors taught us that fresh blood breaks the curse. I rolled my eyes. It sounded like a ghost story meant to scare a child. Then why didn't you use your own blood? Why cut me? Sun the second patted my head, his eyes glinting. Our blood is no good. We need boy blood. Yin Feng, I bet you've never even held a girl's hand, have you? I stuttered, unable to find a comeback, and quickly changed the subject to hide my embarrassment. What about the 6 lesser evils? I asked. Sun the third shook his head and looked at me. Yin Feng, you're new to this. You haven't seen enough yet. These are the warnings passed down by the old-timers. He started listing them off like a dark ritual. Shifting sands, heavenly fire, a corpse that refuses to rot, orifices stuffed with pearls, a coffin too small for its occupant, and a rat's nest inside the casket. Those are the 6 lesser evils of the old world. He paused, his voice dropping an octave. Every trade has its secrets. Back in the day, we were called the partial 8 gates. Now, The government just calls us criminals. There are the righteous 8 for the highborn and the partial 8 for the low. And then there are the 7 shadow gates, the ones who deal only with the dead. I listened, fascinated despite the chill crawling up my spine. He told me I needed to learn this so I wouldn't embarrass our northern sect. He rattled off the shadow gates, the corpse stitchers, the coffin bearers, the body corpsers, the bone crushers, the papier-mâché makers, the ancient corpse collectors, and the child coffin smiths. Remember these names when you're out in the world, he warned. My head was spinning. It was too much information at once. I didn't really understand what all these gates and categories meant, and honestly, I wasn't sure I wanted to. All right, third, that's enough, Sun the Second interrupted, shaking his wrist. He's just a kid. Let's go. We need to find the main burial chamber. He grinned, looking at his bloody wrist. We've got Yin Feng's boy blood on us now. We're invincible. We waded through the murky water for another 3 minutes. The main chamber should have been right there, but when our headlamps cut through the gloom, all we saw was a solid stone wall. Dead end. Suddenly, a cold breeze whipped past my neck. My feet were freezing in the stagnant water. Sun the Second looked up. Above us, in the ceiling of the tomb path, was a jagged, black hole. The wind was howling through it. Sun the Third frowned. The other crew did this. They didn't blast through where we saw the marks earlier. They changed spots and used dynamite to drop in right here. He keyed his radio. Boss, we've hit a stone wall. No main chamber yet. No funerary goods in sight. Master Wang's voice crackled back instantly. A tomb with clay like that must have a main chamber. Keep looking. Check the west side room. Copy that. How much time do we have? 2 hours and 45 minutes until sunrise. Move fast. We bypassed the stone wall and slipped into the west side room. It was a small, hollowed-out chamber. I could see the watermarks on the walls. This place had been completely submerged until recently. Then, my headlamp hit the floor. My heart nearly stopped. Bronze. I whispered. There were piles of it. Piles and piles of ancient bronze artifacts strewn across the floor in a chaotic mess. Some were broken, some were pristine. Round tripods, square cauldrons, bronze boxes, jars, and cups. There had to be dozens of them. We're rich. Sun the Second's eyes went red with greed. He grabbed his radio, his voice shaking. Boss, we hit the motherlode. The west side room is full of bronze. Black lacquer, bone water, silver rust. It's genuine Western Zhou water pit treasure. Master Wang remained calm, but I could hear the edge in his voice. Turn the luck. Get every single piece out. You got it. Sun the Second pulled out a heavy sack. Those southern rats must be turning vegetarian. I can't believe they left all this meat for us. I should thank their ancestors. Sun the Third wasn't smiling. He looked around, his brow furrowed. Brother, something's wrong. Southern crews have noses as sharp as ours. They wouldn't just miss a haul this big. It doesn't make sense. Sun the Second didn't care. He picked up a small square tripod and kissed it. Haha, come to Papa, you beautiful thing. He glanced at his brother. Third, you're getting soft. If a bunch of beautiful girls were lying on the ground waiting for you, would you stop to ask why? No, you'd get to work. I didn't argue. I pulled out my own sack and started grabbing. The tripods were heavy, so Sun the Third told me to focus on the smaller items, the cups and spice jars. In the Western Zhou dynasty, these were kitchenware. The tripods were for cooking meat, the cups were for wine. It felt like I was shoveling money into a bag. I was thin and not particularly strong, so once my bag was full, I decided to head back to the entry point. As I turned to leave, my light swept across a dark corner of the room. I froze. What is that? A water vat? I yelled. Brother, look. There's a huge vat over there. Sun the Second jumped, nearly dropping a bronze pot. Damn it, Yin Feng. Don't scream like that. You scared the life out of me. But there's a massive vat in the corner. He didn't even look up. It's just coarse pottery. It's heavy, it's fragile, and it's not worth a fraction of the bronze. We'd spend more on labor moving it than we'd make selling it. Leave it. I looked at the vat one last time. It had a heavy stone lid. Something about it felt off, but I didn't linger. I hauled my heavy bag of bronze back through the water. A rope dropped down from the hole in the ceiling. Master Wang's voice echoed from above. Yin Feng, tie the bag. Tight. Then get back in there and get more. We're running out of time. For the next hour, we worked like demons. We sent up 8 full sacks of bronze. Finally, the radio buzzed. Everyone up. Now, the sun is coming up. We need to get off this mountain. The Sun brothers used a human ladder to boost me up to the hole, and Master Wong hauled me the rest of the way. The brothers didn't even need the rope. They braced their feet against the tunnel walls and climbed out like spiders. Back on the surface, Sun II couldn't stop grinning. He looked at the bulging sacks. Boss, how many points do you think we're looking at? Master Wong smiled. We'll have to ask the eldest brother for an estimate. He's the expert on value. I later learned that 1 point meant 10,000 yuan. In the year 2000, most people didn't even earn 1 point in a whole year. Sun the eldest was our lookout and salesman. He stayed off the radio unless there was trouble. If he spoke, it meant strangers were close. Boss, Sun II said, wiping sweat from his face. That was just one side room. We haven't even found the main chamber yet. We need to set up a permanent camp here. Heaven knows how much more treasure is buried down there. It was going to take at least 8 to 10 days. In our line of work, we had a specific name for this, a base operation. It only happened when you hit a massive tomb, something so big you couldn't possibly clear it out in a night or two. You had to build a base around it. Back in the day, when old-timers in the tomb-robbing business met up, they'd ask, "Who's that guy? I heard he ran 2 major base operations last year." The guy would usually act humble, saying it was just luck and they were only small bases. But the truth was, setting up a base was incredibly risky. If some old lady decided to take an early morning stroll and accidentally tumbled into our tunnel, we were finished. High reward always meant high risk. Master Wong weighed the options and finally nodded. Western Zhou artifacts are skyrocketing on the black market. The prices change every single day. I think it's worth the gamble. Let's set up the base. Once we made the decision, Sun the eldest immediately contacted a woman known as the Mole. She was a legend in her own right. I later learned that she had brothers and associates with powerful backgrounds all over the region. She didn't just handle logistics for Master Wong. She worked for several different crews at once. Technically, that was against the rules of the trade, but she was so capable that Master Wong just looked the other way. She was like a high-level corporate manager handling multiple firms. The Mole kept a crew of young toughs who were fiercely loyal to her. That night, they were the ones who brought us the generators and water pumps. They also helped us camouflage the entrance to the tomb. Honestly, without her, our crew wouldn't have lasted long. The biggest problem was the excavated soil. That white and green clay was a dead giveaway. We couldn't just leave it lying around. It was a ticking time bomb. I'd heard stories of a crew in Beijing that got caught because they left a small pile of colored soil in the hills. An old lady spotted it, called the police, and the whole crew ended up serving 10 years in prison. The next day, back at our small hotel in Shund, I was hunched over a sink brushing my teeth. I was trying to figure out where to dump my share of the colored soil. Suddenly, smack, someone slapped my backside hard. I was mid-brush and ended up swallowing a mouthful of toothpaste and water. I spun around, furious, only to see the Mole standing there in a pink camisole, laughing at me. She was a decade older than me, but she took care of herself with expensive skincare. Her legs, visible under her top, were pale and distracting. My throat went dry. "Little Yin Feng," she said with a sultry smirk. "Sun II told me you've never even held a girl's hand. Is that true?" My face turned bright red. "None of your business." I snapped. She laughed so hard her whole body shook. She beckoned me with a finger. "Hey, Yin Feng, want to be my 45th man?" I was young and didn't know how to handle someone like her. I just blurted out, "No way. By the time you're 40, I'd be wearing 99 green hats. You're shameless. Don't try to corrupt me." That set her off. She grabbed a mop from the hotel hallway and chased me all over the courtyard, cursing me out. By noon, I dressed up like a high school student, carrying a black backpack stuffed with the suspicious clay. I wandered around Shund, looking for a place to get rid of the evidence. As I walked, my mind kept drifting back to the tomb. I couldn't stop thinking about that large water vat with the heavy stone lid I'd seen in the corner of the side chamber. Something about it felt wrong. I passed several small restaurants in the Nanfeng district, watching people eat. I tried to find a spot to dump the soil several times, but my nerves failed me. Every time I reached for the zipper, I imagined a hand in a uniform tapping my shoulder. Eventually, I found myself by a small river. My eyes lit up. Shund was famous for its waterways. Once that clay hit the water, it would just turn into mud. No one would ever know. I checked to make sure no one was looking and started unzipping my bag. Hey, stop right there. What are you doing? A sharp voice behind me made me jump so hard I nearly fell in. I turned to see a girl in a school uniform, ponytail swaying, pointing a finger at me. She had a red armband that read, River Warden. I'm talking to you, she shouted. Were you about to throw trash in the river? I panicked, clutching my open bag. No, I wasn't. Liar. I saw you. What's in the bag? Let me see. She started marching toward me. I lost my cool and bolted. She chased me along the riverbank, yelling for me to stop. In my haste, my foot slipped. I went tumbling straight into the water. The backpack, weighted down by the clay, sank instantly. I couldn't swim. I thrashed around, swallowing gulps of river water and screaming for help. The girl ended up jumping in to save me. Her name was Li Jing, a local high school student. She was covering her mother's shift, who worked in river maintenance. By the time she dragged me onto the bank, I looked like a drowned rat, but I was secretly relieved. The evidence was at the bottom of the river. She was soaking wet and furious. She grabbed my collar. Why did you run? You can't even swim, you idiot. What was in that bag? I just slipped. I lied, my face flushing. It was just school books. They're gone now. I'll just buy new ones. She squinted at me, clearly not buying it. I think you're up to something. People have been illegally blast fishing around here lately. You're coming to see my mom. She'll decide if you can go. She started dragging me along. I protested, swearing I wasn't a fisherman, but I didn't dare run again. If I did, a girl as stubborn as her might actually call the police and bring heat on the whole crew. Her house was right by the river, across a pedestrian bridge. The bridge was lined with street vendors selling toys and socks. But one stall stood out. It was a fortune-telling booth. The man sitting there looked to be in his 50s, wearing round sunglasses and chain-smoking cheap cigarettes. He didn't even finish one before lighting the next. Little Li Jing is much more capable than her mother, the fortune-teller said, a sly grin spreading across his face. Looks like she caught another one trying to dump trash in the river. He was sitting on a small folding stool, looking relaxed. Li Jing puffed out her chest, clearly proud of the praise. You bet, Li Banxian. This kid saw me and bolted. He even fell into the water. I'm pretty sure he's one of those guys who uses electricity to stun fish. Li Banxian took a long drag of his cigarette. He exhaled a massive cloud of smoke that almost hid his entire face. Ah, shocking fish. That's bad luck, kid. People who do that ruin their fate. Karma will catch up to you. Li Jing burst out laughing. Li Lao Lu, I only call you Banxian out of habit. Do you actually think you're a half-immortal? You're killing me. Remember when you told Li Xin his pig would get pregnant within a month? The damn thing died of diarrhea 3 days later. Where are the piglets, huh? The old man coughed twice, waving away the smoke. That pig just had bad timing. It wasn't my calculation. If you don't believe me, why don't I give you a reading right now? Li Jing doubled over, pointing a finger at him. No way. I wouldn't dare. You probably haven't had a customer in days. If you're so bored, read his fortune instead. Tell me if he's really a fish shocker. She pointed directly at me. I didn't know why, but in my dazed and soaking wet state, I just went along with it. The man asked for my birth date and time. Then, he pulled out an old tortoise shell containing 3 ancient copper coins from the Qianlong era. He shook it vigorously before letting the coins clatter onto the table. The 3 coins landed face down. 2 were stacked on top of each other, while the third lay far off to the side, isolated. The silence stretched out. The fortune-teller's playful smirk vanished. He stared at those coins for a long time, so long that his cigarette burned down to the filter and singed his fingers. He let out a long, heavy sigh and shook his head. Well, Li Lao Lu? Li Jing asked, still smiling. What's the verdict? Is he a thief, or what? The man lit another cigarette and took a deep pull. He looked at me with an expression I couldn't quite read. Young man, you aren't simple. My heart hammered against my ribs. I had a guilty conscience, so I whispered, What do you see? He chuckled darkly. The water is deep, but the pond is shallow. A shallow pond usually has too many turtles. You're the most valuable turtle in that pond, kid. But in the end, you won't escape your fate. You'll be slaughtered and turned into a bowl of soup. I was furious. He basically called me a turtle destined for the pot. I thought he was just a hack. But looking back now, every word he said was a drop of blood. Years later, I tried to find him again, but he was gone. Some said he died of lung cancer because he couldn't afford chemo. Others said he left shunned and vanished. If I could find him today, I'd pay him 1,000,000 yuan just to ask one thing. Can a man like me ever have a family? Where do I go from here? Back then, I didn't know any of that. Li Jing dragged me to her house like a stray dog on a leash. "Mom, I'm back," she yelled. A woman in her 40s came out. Her hair was already turning white, and her face was lined with the exhaustion of a hard life. "Xiao Jing, who is this? A classmate?" "No, Mom," Li Jing said, gripping my arm tight. "I caught him by the moat. He was acting suspicious. I think he's one of those fish shockers." Her mother looked at me, confused. "Young man, is that true?" I stammered an explanation, swearing it was all a misunderstanding. The mother looked at me kindly and smiled at her daughter. "Xiao Jing, you've got it wrong. This boy doesn't look like a criminal. You can't just drag people home. Apologize to him." I realized then why Li Jing was so obsessed with catching fish shockers. The local forestry bureau had a bounty. The river's ecosystem was dying, and the government was desperate to protect it. Anyone who turned in a poacher got a 500 yuan reward. Li Jing's family was broke. She didn't care about the fish. She just wanted the bounty money to help her mother. Under her mother's stern gaze, Li Jing gave me a half-hearted apology. "Fine. Sorry, classmate." To make amends, her mother insisted I stay for lunch. It was nearly 2 o'clock, and my stomach was growling, so I stayed. We had rice with 3 simple dishes: stir-fried chives with eggs, zucchini with beans, and lotus root. It was delicious. I shoveled the food into my mouth, starving. Li Jing sat across from me, glaring. Every few seconds, she'd slam her chopsticks against her porcelain bowl, making a sharp clatter. She was pissed that I was eating their eggs. "Xiao Jing, where are your manners?" her mother scolded. "I just don't like the look of him," Li Jing snapped, biting her chopsticks. I felt a surge of anger. I grew up poor and orphaned, but I had pride. I put my chopsticks down, ready to leave. I didn't need her charity or her eggs. But before I could reach the door, a group of 6 or 7 men burst in. They were young, muscular, and carrying paint buckets and wooden clubs. "Li Dequan, get out here, you coward," the leader roared. "If you don't come out, I'll beat your wife and kid to death." I froze. I'd never seen anything like this. Li Jing and her mother turned pale. The leader walked to the table, saw our lunch, and let out a cold laugh. "Damn, you have money for eggs, but no money to pay your debts. Let me help you eat." He lifted a bucket and poured thick, red paint all over the table. The chemical stench was overwhelming. The food was ruined, covered in a sticky red sludge. Li Jing's mother trembled with fear. Li Jing just stared at the floor, silent. "Love eggs, do you?" The man used a club to poke a clump of paint-covered chives and eggs toward Li Jing. "Eat it. If you finish the whole plate, we leave." "How about that?" The other men burst into laughter. I couldn't take it anymore. "What are you doing? This is bullying." The leader turned to me, grinning. "And who the hell are you?" I took a deep breath. "I'm Li Jing's classmate. If you don't leave, I'm calling the police." The room erupted in laughter. "Call the cops. For a debt? You little brat." Without warning, he swung the club at my head. I tried to block it, but I was too slow. The wood cracked against my skull. My vision blurred. I reached up and felt something warm and wet. Blood. "Stop. Don't hit him," Li Jing screamed. Her eyes were bloodshot as she looked up. Her mother was sobbing. Li Jing reached out, grabbed a handful of the paint-covered eggs, and shoved them into her mouth. The eggs were covered in thick, sticky red paint. The chemical smell was sharp enough to make my eyes water. Li Jing took one bite and immediately started gagging. The leader didn't care. "That's not good enough," he sneered. "Eat it all. Every single bit. Are you deaf?" Li Jing's hands trembled, but she reached out and shoved more paint-covered eggs into her mouth. 5 minutes later, the plate was empty. "Heh, interesting," the leader laughed, looking satisfied. "At least we got a show today. Boys, let's go." He turned back to the room and spat on the floor. Tell Li Daquan that next time we come, if he doesn't have the money, it won't be this simple. They left, cursing and laughing as they walked out the door. I was still on the ground, my head throbbing. I'd lost a lot of blood, and the world felt like it was spinning. Are you okay? Li Jing asked. She wiped the red paint from her lips and carefully helped me up. Her mother rushed over with some gauze and did a clumsy job of bandaging my head. I laid down on their bed for over an hour before I felt human again. Young man, I'm so sorry, Li Jing's mother said, her face twisted with guilt. Because of us, you got hurt. Annie, who were those people? I asked, wincing at the pain in my skull. My dad's business failed, Li Jing whispered, her eyes downcast. He owes them a lot of money. How much? I asked. Li Jing's mother shook her head, tears welling up again. 50,000 yuan. 50,000. I nearly jumped out of the bed. In this era, that was a fortune. Even if they didn't eat or drink for 3 years, they couldn't pay that back. Do you need to go to the hospital? Or back to school? The mother asked. We should get you home. I feel terrible about this. No, it's fine, I said, waving her off. I can walk. I'll head back on my own. Li Jing walked me out. We walked side by side in silence for a while until she looked down at her shoes. Hey, about earlier. I'm sorry. It's okay. It's over now, I said, trying to act tough. You're not from our school, are you? She asked suddenly. Which one do you go to? I'll come find you sometime. I panicked. I couldn't tell her the truth. I'm a junior at the first high school, I lied. The first high? You must be really smart then, she said with a small smile. I felt my face turn red. My grades were consistently in the bottom 3 of my class. I was stable, at least. Back then, PHS phones were just becoming a thing, and students like us couldn't afford them, so we didn't exchange numbers. But as I left, she told me to come visit her when I had time. She even asked if I could help her with her homework. When I finally made it back to the hotel, Master Wang was sipping tea. When he saw my head wrapped in gauze, he nearly spat his drink across the room. Yin Feng, what happened to you? He barked. Did you fall into a hole while burying the soil? Master, I said, feeling embarrassed. I got into a fight. I got jumped. Master Wang shook his head slowly. Yin Feng, you were reckless. In our line of work, you have to be careful. Always. If people follow the trail you leave, we're all finished. I'm sorry, Master. It won't happen again. He blew on his tea and took a slow sip. Still, you're one of my men now. Tell me, do you want to get even? Yes, I said without hesitation. I feel like I got played. Master Wang set his tea down. We just set up our base of operations here. We have to keep a low profile. My advice? Endure it for now. Once we finish this job and leave Shund, I'll talk to Ikaji. He has connections on the streets. He'll handle it. I nodded. That sounded fair. The small warehouse we rented was still full of bags of white and green clay, but Master Wang didn't send me out to hide soil that afternoon. Instead, he gave me a new job. He wanted me to help Sun, the eldest, process the bronze artifacts we'd pulled up the night before. As I approached the warehouse, a heavy scent of cumin and grilled meat hit my nose. Someone had set up a charcoal grill right by the door and was slathering meat with spices. Sun, the eldest, was in charge of turning our finds into cash, but they needed work first. I knocked on the door. Brother Sun, it's Yin Feng. Master Wang sent me to help. He opened the door wearing a white hazmat suit, heavy rubber gloves, and plastic goggles. Several bronze pieces sat on the floor next to a large white plastic tub. The tub was half full of a translucent liquid that smelled incredibly pungent, almost like concentrated urea. Put these on, he said, tossing me a set of gear. I suited up, watching him pick up a bronze piece covered in red spots and silvery corrosion. He dropped it into the tub. The liquid immediately started bubbling and hissing, and the stench became unbearable. What are you doing, Brother Sun? I asked. In our trade, we call this killing the green, he said, grinning behind his goggles. The chemical formula for this water is a secret. Master Wang had a professional mix it up for us. Killing the green? What does that mean? It means removing the black crust, he explained. When bronze sits in a water pit, the mercury corrosion soaks deep into the metal. If it covers the whole surface, it hides the inscriptions. If we can't see the writing, we lose money. He continued as he watched the bubbles. The guys down south call it killing the rust, but up north, it's killing the green. Listen closely, Yunfeng. For Western Zhou and Warring States bronzes, a square tripod is worth 5 times more than a round one. But a piece with an inscription? That's worth 10 times more. And if it has more than 5 characters? Every extra character adds 30,000 yuan to the price. My jaw dropped. 30,000 per word. This tomb is early to mid-Western Zhou. Sun the eldest analyzed. Based on the style of the bronze vessels and the fact that there are dozens of them, the owner was at least a minor vassal king. If we wash this and find an inscription with his name, and if that name is in the history books, then we've truly hit the motherlode. Everything clicked. The charcoal grill outside wasn't for lunch. It was a cover to mask the chemical stench of the cleaning process. The gloves were for protection because the liquid was highly corrosive. If a drop splashed into your eye, it would blind you instantly. After soaking the pieces for 20 minutes, we had to use stiff brushes to scrub the rust. We couldn't be too rough, and we couldn't remove all the patina. As soon as we confirmed an area had no writing, we stopped. I scrubbed several pieces, my eyes straining to see anything beneath the grime. Nothing. I was starting to get discouraged. Don't be let down, Sun the eldest laughed, working on a bronze box. This stuff is all about fate. If it's meant to be there, it's there. You can't force it. I picked up a small bronze vessel, a dough, and started scrubbing the inner base. My brush hit something. I blinked. Was I seeing things? I thought I saw a faint, golden stroke of a character. Wait, what's this? I scrubbed harder, my heart racing. Brother, look. I found characters. There's an inscription in here. The strokes were complex, weaving together like some ancient, ghostly script. I shouted with excitement and handed it over. Sun the eldest squinted at the golden-laid characters emerging from the metal. His brow furrowed. This isn't birdseal script. It's not oracle bone script either. This is Ludai script, a form of ancient Gujin writing. Sun the eldest muttered, his eyes wide with disbelief. It predates oracle bone script. It's from before the Shang dynasty. How could this be on a Western Zhou bronze? Sun the eldest was a man who had seen everything, but this shook him. He recognized it instantly. It wasn't the common birdseal script. It was the incredibly rare Ludai style. After the initial shock, his confusion turned into raw excitement. Lin Yuan, keep scrubbing the rest, he commanded, his voice tight. This script is too rare. There are only a handful of people in the entire country who can translate this. I need to find someone immediately to tell us what these characters mean. He carefully placed the bronze vessel into a wooden box and hurried out of the room. I spent the rest of the day cleaning the remaining pieces, but I didn't find another single character. That one vessel was the only one. We worked through the day, but the real work happened at night. Once the world went quiet, we were supposed to head back down into the pit. But Sun the eldest didn't return all afternoon. Without him there to act as a lookout, the risk was too high. Master Wang wouldn't move without a full crew. It was past midnight when Sun the eldest finally burst through the door, breathless and clutching the wooden box. He didn't say a word at first. He lunged for the teapot on the table and downed half of it in one go, wiping his mouth with the back of his hand. Master, he said, looking at Wang. I pulled some strings at the Archaeological Research Institute. I got those characters translated. And? Master Wang asked. What does it say? Sun the eldest opened the box and touched the bronze vessel, his face turning cold. Jiaho Daizi. Brother, what's a Jiaho Daizi? I asked, confused. Is it some kind of seaweed? He didn't laugh. He looked me dead in the eye. It's not seaweed. It's a name. I've seen it mentioned once or twice in obscure records. I never thought we'd stumble onto his grave. He turned back to Master Wang. What's the move, Master? The Sun brothers are ready to go. Master Wang's expression turned serious. Is the perimeter secure? Sun the eldest nodded. Yeah. The young guys the mole sent over are sharp. They're watching the roads. Good, Wang said, his voice dropping an octave. We don't sell this haul yet. Especially not that bronze vessel. If word gets out from Shund, it'll attract wolves. Dangerous ones. You think the crews from the south will come? Sun the eldest asked darkly. I think everyone will come, Wang replied. There's too many wolves and not enough meat these days. If we don't keep the lid on this pot tight, the smell will bring them all running. I've decided. 5 days. We cut the timeline to 5 days. I want everything out of that hole. As soon as we're done, we leave shunned and go to ground. Listening to them, I felt a knot tighten in my stomach. They were scared. These veteran tomb raiders were genuinely afraid of something. By the time we reached Mount Phi, it was well past the hour of the rat. Sun II was crouching on the ground, smoking, while Sun III checked the burlap sacks. Everything was still. Start. Sun the eldest's voice crackled over the radio. Lin Yuan, how many sacks do you have? Sun II asked. I've got 4, brother, I replied. That should be enough. He crushed his cigarette under his boot. Suddenly, a strange bird cried out from deep within the woods. The sound was haunting, sending a shiver down my spine. It felt like a bad omen. Damn bird, Master Wang cursed, looking into the darkness of the mountain. It's a Baoseng bird. Nothing good ever comes when they're around. In the old days, people called owls night owls, and since they were often seen near mass graves, they earned the name Baoseng, the bird of funerals. Sun II spat on the ground several times to ward off the bad luck. We waited for the owl to stop crying before we moved. The tunnel the mole's men had dug was well hidden. They had covered the entrance with fresh yellow sod supported by wooden stakes. From the outside, you couldn't see a thing. We put on our headlamps and prepared to descend. The Sun brothers braced their legs against the tunnel walls and slid down effortlessly. I struggled a bit more, being the last one in. At the bottom, the water had mostly drained away, leaving only a thick, sticky mud that clung to my boots. The tunnel was damp, dark, and significantly colder than the surface. Sun II adjusted his lamp and looked at me. Master is right, we need to move fast. Lin Yuan, go check the west side chamber. See if we missed anything in the corners. If it's clear, come back and help us on the east side. With that, we split up. They headed right, and I turned left toward the west chamber. As soon as I was alone in the silence of the tomb, the fear started to creep in. I adjusted my lamp, whispering a quiet prayer under my breath. Don't mind me, ancestors. I'm just looking for a little fortune. Amitba. I remembered asking Master Wang once about the old stories, how tomb raiders were supposed to light a white candle in the corner of the room. If the candle went out, it meant the ghost of the owner was angry and you had to leave. Wang had laughed in my face. Lin Yuan, you watch too many movies. If the candle goes out, it means there's no oxygen. If it stays lit, does that mean the owner is happy to see us? Don't be ridiculous. The old-timers used candles because they didn't have electricity. If we used an open flame in some of these tombs, the methane gas would blow us all to hell. Thinking of his words calmed me down a little. I reached the west chamber and scanned the floor with my headlamp. It was empty. We had already cleared out dozens of bronze pieces. The only thing left was a massive pottery vat in the northwest corner, covered by a heavy stone slab. Sun II had said the vat wasn't worth anything, but I couldn't help but wonder if something was hidden inside. I walked over to it. It was made of coarse clay, consistent with the era before porcelain was invented. What baffled me was its size. It was huge, cast in a single piece without any seams. I couldn't imagine how they had fired something this large. The lid was a slab of bluestone. I tried to push it with one hand, but it wouldn't budge. I set my feet and used both hands, heaving with all my strength. The stone scraped against the clay rim with a piercing, screeching sound that echoed through the chamber. I pushed it back inch by inch. As the gap opened, a foul, sickening stench hit me right in the face. The smell was faint when the stone slab was sealed, but now it was unmistakable. I had already felt this Western Zhou tomb was strange from the moment we stepped inside. When we first arrived, I caught a hint of something sweet, almost like a light perfume. Now, the air was thick with a stench so foul it made my stomach churn. It smelled exactly like boiled eggs left to spoil in the sweltering heat of midsummer. I adjusted my headlamp and leaned over the rim of the massive vat. At the bottom of the jar, there was a single hole barely 20 centimeters wide. Nothing else was inside. I leaned closer and realized the rotten egg smell was venting directly out of that gap. I aimed my light downward, but the beam died in the shadows. It was just an empty black void. I felt a strange, nagging curiosity. I pressed my chest against the cold clay and reached my right arm deep into the hole, fumbling in the dark. My fingers brushed against something hard. I strained, reaching further until I gripped a long, solid object. My heart skipped a beat. Was it a gold bar? No, that didn't make sense. It felt far too light to be solid metal. I adjusted my angle and slowly pulled the object out into the light. It was stark white. I lowered my head to get a better look. My blood turned to ice. It was a human thigh bone. I let out a sharp, terrified scream and threw the bone across the room. It clattered against the stone floor, the sound echoing through the chamber like a gunshot. My breath came in ragged gasps. I wondered if this was the owner of the tomb, but it didn't make sense. How could a body from the Western Zhou dynasty survive without turning to dust? I was too panicked to notice a sickening detail. That bone wasn't dry or fossilized. It still had fresh marrow inside. This was my first time on a real job, and I was already way out of my depth.